Well, good morning, and I welcome everybody to our July meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority. I don't have any particular items right now. Do we have any citizens to be heard? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve our minutes of our June 2nd board meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. And then approval of our amended minutes of the Joint Transportation and Finance Committee meeting on June 1st. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Consent docket. We've got 5 items on the consent docket. Any of the items any of the trustees would like individual discussions about? Then I would entertain a motion to approve our consent docket.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Items for individual consideration. I would have a motion to move item J to the end of our meeting. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. No. Item A is approval of our agreement with Community Action Agency. B is Yellow Cab, and another agreement with Community Action, and Jason said he could probably discuss all 3 of those since they're kind of tied together. So, Jason, if you would.
Yeah, all 3 of these items, 6A, B, and C, are new contracts with transportation service providers for our special services programs. And as you'll recall, our special services programs primarily involve providing transportation for seniors, whether it be providing accessibility to different shopping locations, congregate meal sites, non-emergency medical. Also part of our special services program of services is low-income and emergency transportation for homeless individuals. And so anyway, the contracts that are being presented to the trust for consideration this morning are all new contracts, but they're with our current providers. So you may have seen similar items in the past on the consent docket as we've renewed these agreements, but as you know, every approximately 3 to 5 years we go out for new contracts, and that's what you have before you this morning, are new contracts with these providers, each one of them, I believe, 1 year with 4 one-year renewals. So I'll talk just quickly about each one of the items. Item VA is an agreement, item 6A is an agreement with Community Action Agency of Oklahoma City and Canadian counties for the Senior Companion Transportation. Senior Companion is where we coordinate round trips for seniors who volunteer to assist other seniors, usually at their residence, to help them just carry out various daily living functions. So Community Action has helped us with this in the past. We ended up advertising for bids on March 29th and April 5th. Community Action was the only bidder for the service. Estimated cost is about $15,000 annually. The funding source is area-wide aging agency funds. And just to give you a sense of the amount of trips we provide with this funding, last year we provided around 1,185 of these senior companion trips. So that's item A. Item B is actually an agreement with Yellow Cab Company for social services transportation. There's 2 parts of our social services transportation. For the homeless and low-income individuals. Most of the trips provided through this program are provided through our fixed route bus system, but there are cases when emergency transportation is needed. The fixed route service may not suffice the need, and in that case we rely on the services of cab companies. With this item here, this is an agreement with Yellow Cab for these services. The transportation service itself is actually funded through our partnership with the Oklahoma City Planning Department. It's an allocation of the CDBG, or Community Development Block Grant funds. That's what allows this service, so we certainly appreciate their partnership. Again, we advertised for bids on the March 29th and April 5th. One bid was received from Yellow Cab. Estimated cost is $43,000 annually, and as I mentioned, it's a one-year contract with 4 one-year renewal options. And then finishing up this series of special services contracts, item 6C is contracts with both community action and daily living centers, and this is for the senior non-emergency medical transportation. We do provide, as you know, transportation for seniors to those various medical appointments. They're, again, non-emergency medical transportation. It's usually to individuals who may not qualify for the paratransit service, but nonetheless need assistance getting to various doctor's appointments. Again, bids were advertised on March 29th, April 5th. 2 bids were received. We're recommending contracts with both daily living and community action. Estimated cost is about $37,000 annually. Source of funds, again, is our area-wide aging agency grants. And this year, we're on pace to provide about 1,300 of these non-emergency medical trips. It is down from about 2,700 or more last year, but nonetheless, a service that will still continue to, a needed service that we'll still continue to provide.
And then these are by appointment. Do they assist them from the house, or must they be able to get to the van?
With the non-emergency, they'll go to their home. And I don't know, Marilyn, can you comment on that? With the non-emergency medical, is that curb to curb, door to door, or combination of both?
It's a combination of both. They give them assistance if they need into the door.
Okay.
If they need more assistance than just that, we use the RSVP service. We approved that contract last time.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Any questions by the trustees? Then I would have a motion to approve item A. All in favor? Opposed? Motion to approve item B.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? And then item C.
Motion to approve.
All in favor? Aye. Item D is our approval of the fiscal year operating budget, and then item E is approval of the capital improvement plan for fiscal year. So, and I think each trustee had an amended capital improvement in front of you when we sat down. I think it was just an addition area on the bottom, but if Jason, maybe you can just cover both of those and then we can take a vote on them. So.
Yes, so item 6B is the consideration of approval of the Central Oklahoma Transportation Parking Authority fiscal year 2018 operating budget. Just as a reminder, yes, the budget and the capital plan were both presented to the Finance Committee back in April. I believe it was actually April 18th was the date of that committee meeting. And then just as a reminder, typically we will wait for the City Council to approve the fiscal year budget before presenting the Cotpa operating budget to the trustees for consideration, primarily because of the general fund support that is built into the operating budget for transit services. So with that, looking at the operating budget, you'll notice that the total budget is $36.9 million for all services. So that's all of our parking operations, all of our transit services. As you're aware, transit makes up the largest portion of the budget at $26.5 million. This does represent a 1% decrease overall from the previous year's budget, and specifically about $517,000 less in general fund subsidy than the previous fiscal year. The FY 2018 operating budget also establishes the streetcar operating budget of $840,000. You'll notice the Spokie's budget is projected to be $204,577. That is a decrease of just under $18,000, and that's primarily due to reducing revenue, particularly sponsorship revenue, to be more in line with what we've experienced here in this fiscal year. As you'll recall, several comments from me as we're going through the financial reports, we pointed out that our sponsorship revenue for fiscal year 17 did not meet expectations, and so we've adjusted the FY18 budget accordingly and balanced that by a reduction in marketing expenditures for Spokies. And then the Oklahoma River budget remains unchanged at $900,870. But I do think it's worth pointing out that we, because of the success we've had on the river last year in particular with ridership and additional revenues, we were able to program in just under $28,000 more of operating revenue than what we had in the previous fiscal year. So what that means is we're not having to budget any fund balance or reserves whatsoever on the river operations in order to balance the budget. And then finally with parking, the parking budget is right around $8.4 million. It reflects a reduction of about 3.29%. Even with that reduction in the budget, we are still anticipating adding about $2.5 million to reserves after debt service in fiscal year 2018. So upon approval of the budget by the trust, we will then proceed to have the budget received by the City Council. In terms of the 5-year capital plan, again, in developing our 5-year capital plan, basically what we do is we follow the city process where every other year we develop the 5-year capital plan in conjunction with all of the other departments that have capital projects. And so what you have before you is actually the 2017 to 2021 capital plan. However, as staff, during the off year, we like to look at that capital plan and make any updates. And so why would there need to be updates? Well, obviously, timing of projects, sometimes cost estimates for projects are revised, and sometimes there's new projects that we need to add that weren't necessarily contemplated, a year and a half ago when the plan was being developed. So what you have is still that 5-year capital plan that was approved last year, but updated to reflect changes based on the most current status of projects. As far as major changes go, what you'll notice is the largest change is moving the CNG facility from fiscal year 2017 to 2018. We have had some delays in the design and construction of that project. We've talked about them some in committee meetings, but just as a reminder, in essence, one of the things we're dealing with is floodplain issues. We did find out the location was just on the edge of a floodplain, so we've had to do some design to mitigate that. And then we've also discovered some additional improvements and renovations that are needed to our fleet maintenance facility in order to be able to work on CNG vehicles and have that facility be up to code. So that's pushed the project out. The costs have increased by about $1.9 million. It is funded still primarily through grants and our capital reserves. The other thing you'll notice, looking at major changes on the 5-year capital plan, is the project estimates for the transit center increased by about $500,000. And what we're contemplating is staff is trying to put together kind of a phase 2 for transit center renovations. Just as a reminder, phase 1 of transit center renovations are currently underway, and I'm pleased to report the project overall is pretty much on schedule, and hopefully we'll finish up in August. And we're looking forward to either Kevin or Dennis presenting that project as it nears completion with some good before and after pictures for the trustees to review. And then the last major change was really just in the purchase of replacement buses and paratransit vans. We more evenly distributed those replacements through 2018 and 2020. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any other questions about the budget or the capital plan.
What's the makeup of the bus replacement in 2018? CNG or?
Yes, all future bus replacements are anticipated to be CNG, with the exception of when there's grants available, particularly low and no emission grants that basically favor electric propulsion technology, we will consider those as well, but primarily CNG.
Do we have any from the 2017 bond program, even though we haven't had the election yet, are we counting on revenue from that for the bus replacement for some of the funding source?
We are, yes, so we are counting on it from the standpoint that we have our bus replacement needs funded, hopefully through the GO bond in anticipation of it passing. If not, we do have some capital reserves to fall back on, so we don't see us getting into quite the hole in terms of bus replacement needs that we were in. But yeah, ideally, and appreciate you mentioning that, ideally, with a successful passage of the GO bond, that really sets us up nicely to be able to complete our bus replacement projects in the capital plan. So it's critical to seeing this through over the next 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
Is that our matching part, or is that the full replacement, the $5 million?
Yeah, that's just the full cost.
Full cost, okay. All right, any other questions? Then I would have a motion to approve item D, the fiscal year operating budget.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Then item E is the capital improvement plan for 2017 to 2021. All in favor? Thank you. Item F is approval of a contract with Half and Associates for on-call transportation planning services.
Yes, with approval of this contract, this will essentially provide on-call planning services for various ad hoc projects and such that we may come up with as staff as we try to continually improve Embark's public transportation services. So, essentially as we work to meet community expectations, whether it be through additional frequency, increased service span, maybe it's projects as simple as doing some map work or cost-benefit analysis like Larry's been working with. All these projects really require different levels of expertise. Our staff can take care of a lot of those needs, but again, as the projects come up, having a consultant basically on call to be able to assist with those projects, we believe gives us the most flexibility. It helps us be able to quickly address those needs as they come up. And so we're looking forward to having this on-call contract for planning services. And we really kind of see this almost as an extension of our staff. So as different projects come up, if staff is, currently busy with the day-to-day items that everyone is busy with, we have this resource that we can use to help us with our short-term planning in particular. So the item before you today is a recommendation for a contract with Half and Associates. In getting to this point, we did use the city's process for architect, engineer, and consultant selection. We advertised the project on March 6th. We actually interviewed 3 different proposers. The interview committee consisted of staff from Public Works and from Cotpa. Half was determined as the winning proposer. And so with this contract, all work will be issued on a task order basis. And, of course, with an on-call contract, there's no obligation for Cotpa to have to spend anything. But in the event that we do use Half for various projects, we've requested authorization of up to $100,000 annually. In the event we should ever go over that, we will seek authorization from the board before proceeding.
Opposed? Thank you. Item G is for our insurance services, and I don't know, you need to briefly just mention anything on that?
Sure. Just as typical, every year we shop our insurance, our fleet insurance and our felonious assault insurance. One thing about our process this year is a little bit different, as we did use, at the recommendation of the trust, the broker that the City of Oklahoma City uses, whereas in the past, Cotpa has had its own broker. We simply leveraged the existing agreement between the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority and Alliant Insurance Services. So Alliant was able to shop our insurance needs for us through different carriers. As it turns out, their recommendation or the most competitive bid came from our existing provider, National American. And so with approval of this item, we've already been bound, but with approval of this item, we'll look at a fleet insurance with National American for $161,925 annually, and then an agreement with Chubb Insurance, $1,500 annually for that felonious assault insurance.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve item G?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item H is approval of professional services agreement for digital media development and graphic design services.
Yes, as we continue to communicate the benefits of public transportation to our community, continue to try to get the word out about the availability of our parking and direct people visiting downtown to our parking garages, and also knowing that we have a significant public education campaign coming with setting up streetcar operations. We have plenty to do in the areas of developing electronic messaging, web content, and electronic, or I should say, graphic design services. So with that, we've relied on contractors to assist us in keeping up with that demand. As you'll recall, we had a contract earlier in fiscal year 2017. The contractor or vendor was not meeting expectations. We canceled that contract. And now we've been doing some work with Ms. Caitlin Ford. She's actually been working with us now for about 90 days, and so we feel very strongly about her abilities and her fit within what we need to have done. And so staff is recommending entering into a longer-term contract, 1 year with four one-year renewals for this digital media and graphic design services. Estimated cost is about $50,000 annually, or I should say not to exceed $50,000 annually.
All right. Any questions? Then I have a motion to approve item H. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item I is approval of a contract for really miscellaneous open market purchases that are not covered under our normal contract. So,
yeah, and in particular for bus parts, we typically enter into 5-year agreements when we can with bus part vendors. This was the year that we needed to renew those agreements with the various vendors that provide us bus parts. And so basically we solicited bids on April 26th and May 3rd. We used the city's electronic bid management system to manage that procurement process. Bids closed on May 23rd. We actually had 8 different proposers propose for bus parts. You can see the list of proposers there in the title of your memo. But we were very pleased with the response we received, and staff is recommending entering into contracts with all 8 of the proposers, and then that gives us, of course, the maximum flexibility and coverage in terms of being able to get not only the parts we need, but sometimes what is even more critical is the timing of the parts. So we'll have different vendors to select from. In addition to that, there's always a need for some parts that we have to get from the original equipment manufacturer. In this case, New Flyer and Gillig. They're the original equipment manufacturers for buses included within our bus fleet. So in addition to awarding the 8 contracts, we're also seeking authorization for open market resolution purchasing authority for those OEM parts. The contracts are estimated at $550,000 annually, and the open market is $200,000 annually.
all right. Then do I have a motion to approve item I?
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Our next item is ratification of claims and payroll for the period June 6th through June 27th. If there's no questions by any of the trustees, do I have a motion to ratify?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Now, our financial reports for budget to actual for the 11 months ended May 31st. If you have any comments on that, Jason, which I know you have a few, so.
Yeah, just a couple of comments, and we'll start as we do on page 2, looking at the transportation operations. Starting with the operating revenues, if you look at overall revenues, particularly each of the individual lines, when you compare actual revenues received to budget, we really are not seeing any significant variances in most of the line items, so I won't go into a lot of detail on each of the individual lines, but I do want to direct your attention to 2 of the revenue lines. One is being federal grants. You'll notice that through 11 months of the fiscal year, we're about $950,000 less in revenue received than what we had budgeted. Last month, when we looked at this number, we were about $744,000 under what we had budgeted. And really, again, that's just the effect of having savings on the expenditure side because those grants are on a reimbursement basis. So essentially having those savings there basically means the existing grant will carry on into the next fiscal year and actually last longer than what we had anticipated. I would expect us, looking at the 12 months ending in June, to probably finish the year anywhere from $700,000 to $800,000 under on that federal grant revenue. But again, we'll just simply draw it into the next fiscal year. The other revenue line I wanted to mention is the City of Oklahoma City General Fund subsidy. You'll notice that through 11 months of the fiscal year, we've actually drawn $950,000 less than what was included in the original budget. And when you combine that with our mid-year budget cut, which was in excess of $200,000, we're close to $1.2 million less in general fund subsidy than what was originally approved as part of our budget. And again, that goes back to really just the situation that the city's budget is in with revenues coming in lower than expected. Many of the city funds have had to spend down fund balance, and so being supported in the way that we are for our transit operations coming from the city's general fund, we've been asked if we don't need those funds to hold back on drawing them. So with that, I would expect us to finish the year at about that same amount, probably $950,000 to $1 million less in general fund subsidy than what was approved. Now, we're able to do that, and it really doesn't hurt us from the standpoint of having to spend a large amount of reserves because we've been able to keep our expenditures also considerably under budget. In fact, you'll notice, I'll direct your attention to the total operating expenditures line. We're about $1.8 million less in operating expenditures than what we had budgeted, so that almost offsets that variance in revenue. And as we've been noticing throughout the year, most of that savings is coming from personal services, or basically the cost of personnel. So with that, when you look at our total revenues received versus our total expenditures do exceed our revenues by about $156,000, but again, offsetting most of those revenue variances just by savings on expenditures. On the next page, we have our parking operations, and so beginning with the operating revenues, I probably direct your attention to the total operating revenues, the bottom line of that revenue section, and you'll notice we're essentially right on target, 99.8% of revenues received compared to budget. And I'll direct your attention to monthly contract revenue. I believe this is perhaps the first month of this fiscal year where our monthly contract revenue has basically met, or in this case, slightly exceeded our budget. So unfortunately, this is not necessarily a rebound where we've had a bunch of additional monthly parkers and we're seeing our occupancy go up. It's really more a result of our budget kind of finally catching up to our revenues. And you might recall earlier in the year, mentioning that we had our budget a little bit front-loaded in terms of anticipating higher revenues at the beginning of the year and kind of tailing off. And so the revenues coming in according to budget are really a factor of just that budget finally catching up. And then looking at operating expenditures, you'll notice we're about 95% of what we had projected. The parking garage operations line is currently showing to be $240,000 under budget. That only reflects payments to Republic Parking Systems through March, and this budget was developed anticipating payments through April. So there's a little bit of a timing issue there. Overall, you'll notice our revenues exceed our expenditures by about $3.4 million through 11 months of the fiscal year. Looking at Oklahoma River Cruises operations, again, when we compare to last month, total operating revenues are virtually unchanged. We're showing about $46,000 over budget compared to $42,000 over budget last month. Operating expenditures, again, very similar in that they continue to maintain expenditures under budget. Overall, our revenues exceed our expenditures by $113,000, but again, I'll just remind the trustees that that does reflect that full general fund subsidy amount. So by the time we finish the year, that excess of $113,000 will be reduced significantly by at least probably $60,000 to $70,000. And then finishing up on Spokie's bike share operation, again, sponsorship revenues, as I mentioned, have come in under budget. In order to offset that, we have not executed that payment to the Transit Cash Fund to reimburse for some of the personnel expenses. By not doing that, our revenues are in excess of our expenditures by just under $15,000. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions on the financials.
All right, any questions by any of the trustees? Then I'll have a motion to receive our financials. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Our program reports. First is our streetcar report. Jesse, if you have some guests in the audience, I think.
I do. Good morning to the board. Hope everyone had a great 4th of July. Obviously here to give a presentation update on operations and streetcar construction. But before I do, I'd like to introduce Carly Barnaby, General Manager for Herzog, and Jose Marquez, Safety Manager for Herzog. They've joined our team now and fast to work. A quick update on operations. Our notice to proceed to Herzog Transit was issued June 2nd, and we held our kickoff meeting for the Oklahoma City streetcar operations. We held that June 15th, and then we've also got our rail activation committee scheduled for July 27th. We've got a bunch of engineers and everyone coming into town for that kickoff meeting. Obviously, the picture in the middle is the handshake agreement between Embark and Herzog. A couple of handsome fellows there, and then that right photo there is Carly getting to work right after the kickoff meeting. We're meeting with traffic operations, getting inside the traffic control boxes, getting familiar with those so that we can get ready to start programming those. Track construction, I'm sure everyone's aware that we are heavily involved in Bricktown construction. We're looking to get out of Bricktown toward the 1st or middle of August. We've got a lot of construction on Joe Carter and Reno and Sheridan. The top left picture there is the corner at Sheridan and Joe Carter. The streetcar will be heading east there and turning south on Joe Carter. They're looking to get that wrapped up this week or first of next week. And then the bottom left picture there is along Sheridan at Oklahoma. They've got the track bed installed and they're putting the crosswalks back, getting that brick pattern put back in place to make it look new again. Construction downtown, also we're heavily involved in downtown and midtown area. Lots of construction going on Hudson and Reno and Robinson. That top picture there is a picture along Hudson, along Myriad Gardens. There's been several questions. Several people have asked, are we going to maintain the parallel parking along the Married Gardens next to the streetcar route? We will be maintaining that parallel parking. Obviously, that'll be one of the things that we teach people is, how to park in parallel spots next to the streetcar route so that we don't have mirrors being knocked off or people opening doors along the route. Quick little graphic here, mainline track construction. You can see levels of completion and all the different work zones, obviously heavy in Bricktown and the Bricktown Loop. That's our first milestone. We're looking to get that completed in March. That top line there is a little hard to read on the screen, but utilities clear. That's our blue line on the map. We're about 48% complete with utilities, 27% complete on the track demolition, about 19% complete on our track installation, and then 20% complete on our OCS foundations. Most of that is in Bricktown along that non-revenue track there south on Hudson. Moving on to the storage and maintenance facility, construction continues. They're working on interior MEP work. We're looking to get the track installation started in July. There's been some delays there with rail boot procurement, and then also the turntable inside the storage and maintenance facility. The contract completion date is still scheduled for October 24th. We're watching that to make sure that we're going to be able to get the storage and maintenance facility complete in time to receive the streetcars, which are scheduled to start arriving toward the end of October. This picture here shows the progression there. The top photo is 1st of June. The bottom photo, there's a typo there. It's actually 2 days ago. You can see in the bottom photo that we've started some insulation. There's also, we started the lime stabilization in the parking lot, and then also it's hard to see in the photo, but there's also masonry work going on. They're starting installing that limestone on that front wall there. And then this is our turntable. This was a pretty major milestone for the storage and maintenance facility. Lots of delays up front, but this has now been installed, fully operational. You can see Jack J in the photo there. That's how turntable is operated. There's a handle. It collapses down inside the turntable when it's not being operated, but you can manually turn the turntable. What happens is the streetcar will be coming in from the east into that heavy maintenance bay, install jacks into the side of the streetcar, lift the streetcar up, drop the truck onto the track or onto a dolly, bring it over to the turntable, and at that turntable you can spin the trucks and take it over to the wash bay, clean the grease off of it or whatever you need to do there, bring it back to the turntable, head out to the west and load it on a truck and take it to Dallas to get the wheels trued or whatever we need to do, any kind of maintenance that we need to do. Vehicle procurement, kind of a big deal. All 6 vehicles are in production at this point. The first 4 vehicles are in final assembly. Vehicle number 5 is in heavy framing, and then vehicle number 6 is in the initial stages of framing. But all of them moving forward, we're still planning to start accepting streetcars in October. And basically how that'll work is we'll receive one streetcar toward the end of October. That truck that's a specialized trailer, that truck will head back to Pennsylvania, pick up the next car. So we'll be receiving cars about 1 a week starting toward the end of October. Rail procurement, there was a delay with our boulevard special track work. We slipped about 28 days, so our delivery date now for the boulevard special track work is August 25th with installation in October. And our Hudson Boulevard track work, we're expecting to receive that in October with installation in November, December. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Laura?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question.
Okay.
Jesse, so we received the last of the streetcars before the end of 2017?
Correct.
So what happens in that interim period before revenue service starts?
Mm-hmm. So what will happen is they'll be stored in the storage and maintenance facility. We'll have the non-revenue service track on Hudson installed by that point. That's scheduled to be completed in October. They're also scheduled to have the OCS poles completed toward the end of October. So what that will allow is Herzog and Embark will be able to, and Brookville will be able to do some testing of the streetcar along Hudson, and obviously they'll be stored at the storage and maintenance facility. Once the Bricktown Loop is completed in March, toward the end of March, that will allow us to start, March of 2018 will allow us to start doing testing along the B line or the Bricktown Loop. And then the next milestone is the completion of the D line or the downtown loop toward the end of August of 2018, and then we'll start testing the streetcars along the entire route.
How dependent is that schedule on the boulevard completion?
It is a big deal. It's pretty heavily dependent, yes.
So what was the 28-day delay due to?
So we haven't officially gotten word, I'm kind of speaking for MAPS obviously, but we haven't officially gotten word that the ODOT schedule has slipped. We've heard a lot through the grapevine that the ODOT letting of the project has slipped to the first of the year, first of 2018. So if that's true, then we'll be able to get all of our special track work installed before they ever let the project and begin construction. But that's what we hear. And
So what you're saying is, even if their schedule has slipped to letting the bid at the first of the year, we'll still be on track, pardon the pun.
yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, so we don't anticipate any issues. We're pretty confident that what we're hearing is true, that the project's going to slip, and that we'll be able to get our special track work installed and be able to move forward with the construction as planned. We've been in coordination with the ODOT engineers, Keith Angiers, MacArthur Engineering, and that's what they're telling us also. But we've also started talking to them about being able to work out agreements where we're able to protect the track once it's installed. All the special track work, we'll be able to protect the track so that we don't, and be able to set up crossing zones, because we're pretty sure that ODOT's going to want to use the property north of the track as staging area for their construction equipment and materials. So they'll be able to cross the track without damaging the track, still be able to do their work south of the track, and be able to install the boulevard.
Thank
Yeah, no problem.
All right, any other questions, Jesse? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Parking system report. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. It's been fun in parking the past couple of months. Happy to report that the SCADATA, can you forward this? Thanks. As a result of the recent audits, we now have improved reporting. We're utilizing an external reporting system. It provides staff an easier way to pull data, better detailed data, and then also comes with some custom reports. We have, I think, about 35 hours remaining where we can have some custom reports made for our parking system. Again, as a result of our audits. Data retention has improved. The system automatically pulls data off of the SCADATA system and puts it onto the city's network so that we can keep our data longer, and provides us with the ability to review the raw data for future projects. It's quite important to me to have that feature, as I don't know what kind of reports or what data I'm going to need to look at 2 years from now, 3 years from now. So that gives us the ability to strip the data off and analyze it for future needs. Garth Brooks made an announcement several weeks ago that he's going to have 2 concerts on the 14th and 2 concerts on the 15th. Brought together many private parking operators, the police department, venue management, the streetcar installation staff and internal staff, and discussed a variety of options. As plain and simple, there will be some overlap between the first concert and the second concert. That overlap where people are trying to get into the parking facilities for the second concert really maximizes the entire city's parking system. Globally speaking, we have about just under 15,000 parking spaces in the entire city. Includes all the private operators that park cars for general public. Estimated attendance is about 15,000 people. If you state 2 people per vehicle, you're at 7,500 vehicles per concert. We are developing a press release that will go out that will encourage carpooling in order to, really hopeful that we can get 3 to 4 people in a car to help out the overall experience, because traffic is also an issue at the venue. Facility management, staff has been doing a lot of work painting and making some minor repairs. As we go through our other garages and make repairs to, say, the stairwell lobbies or the floor painting the walls in the garages, we're copying the color scheme of the Arts District garage. So over at Santa Fe Garage, we're going into the stairwells and repainting the stairwells. It's work in progress, so pardon our mess over there while we work on that, but you'll start seeing some Arts District colors over there. Century Center Garage, we went in and had to make a lot of repairs to the drywall in the stairwells. As the tenant spaces were being built out, we found lots of investigative holes by contractors in the stairwells where they cut into the drywall, and that work has been repaired and painted. Replacement of light fixtures, that's plain and simple the parking business. We're doing that that's routine work, where a fixture, high-pressure sodium fixture will burn out and we have to go in and replace it. Happy to report that we have developed internally a work order system in order to manage our maintenance tasks. Prior to this work order system, we were plain and simple just creating an Excel spreadsheet that said we did this, we did that. This tool gives us the ability to, 1, be proactive and schedule routine maintenance, and then 2, we're also recording reactive maintenance tasks, such as, hey, a customer reporting something to us. Proactive is helping us quite a bit. In the facilities, you'll notice that during regular business hours, you might see a lack of staff. Plain and simple, we've shifted a lot of our staff to swing shift and graveyard shifts as we can accomplish more cleaning and maintenance with the lack of vehicles in the facilities. I'm sure you've noticed the raised expectations and the painting at the entry and exit plazas of the garages. We have begun replacing the trash bins in the garages. Plain and simple, they were metal and could be used to circumvent the revenue control system. We've changed them out to, we're starting to change them out to plastic to prevent people circumventing the revenue control system. Lastly, small little event, Scissortail Park groundbreaking event. Parking was an issue based off the location of the event. Really didn't want to park cars on a dry grass lot and create a fire danger. So we parked the vehicles on the street. Republic Parking System assisted us with that. They parked 132 vehicles. It was fairly labor intensive in the aspects that we needed to show people how to park and where to park in order to manage the situation, but it went over very well. And that is the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Laura?
I do have a question,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. Corey, during your presentation, when you discussed the Garth Brooks concert, you said there were 15,000 parking spaces. I assume that includes private operator spaces also.
That includes every parking lot and parking garage that we manually counted.
Does it include on-street parking also?
No, it does
Okay.
not.
Thank you.
It also, I do want to add that it excludes, for example, the Devon Tower garage, as they don't open, where they don't open and let it used for private or public use.
All right, any other questions? Thank you. Thanks, Lori. River cruises.
Morning.
Morning.
It's been a terrific season so far. Ferry service ridership for the month of May was up 22% over May of 2016. You can see it was significantly up over 2015, that being because of the tremendous amount of rain that we had 2 years ago in May. Still, our year-to-date ridership is up 7% over 2016. Our ferry riders per service hour was up 34% in May over the same period last year. Staff attributes these increases to significant successful campaigns on social media for Mother's Day and the history cruises, which begin in May. These are some of the social media posts for History Comes Alive cruises. This is something that was moderately promoted on social media in 2016. In 2017, this year, there was quite a bit more promotion, and consequently, our ridership on these cruises has doubled. This is the 11:40 departure, which is typically one of the lowest ridership runs. It's the first run of the morning. Having double ridership on that run provides a significant improvement to our service. These are some of the other posts that are designed to encourage other riders to come, and I can tell you that once again, specialty cruises are selling out well in advance. I believe these social media posts are a huge contributor to our increases in ridership, and we're grateful for this way to advertise without having to spend significant amounts of dollars. Spokies has also seen some improvements. We're up 73% over last May, 66% over May of 2015. This, of course, is in response to the increase in public awareness through social media, and the public support that we receive. These are a couple of the social media posts that we use for Spokies. Spokies participated in Oklahoma History Center's OKC Bike Tour on June 3rd. Discounts were given to 9 participants who checked out Spokies bikes for the tour. We also offered a special Mother's Day weekend rate, which drove hopefully some mothers onto our Spokies bike system. May was National Bike Month. Spokies participated by offering a discount for monthly passes. We had a record number of monthly pass sales, $3 off on a monthly pass during that period. We're hopeful that these individuals will continue their monthly membership in our program and continue to ride our Spokies bikes. Throughout the summer months, we participate in some of the downtown events that are not necessarily promoted by us or generated by us. We're just participants in these events, and these groups are very kind to let us advertise with them for these events. Sound Bites is the lunchtime concert series presented by Downtown OKC and Sandridge Energy. Spokies staff goes out and distributes information about Spokies and will credit usage fees for people who want to take Spokies to the event. Full Moon Bike Rides, the Full Moon Bike Ride on June 7th, if you've been to one of these, they have hundreds of bicycles that ride these events. 24 of those riders were on Spokies bikes. That is pretty much our capacity for that event. That's half of our fleet being involved in the Full Moon Bike Ride, so we're very happy to see us at capacity for that event. For system expansion, staff applied for the Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP grant, for expansion of the Spokies bike share system. Matching funds were secured for an additional 5 stations. 2 of these locations were approved by ACOG's Bike Ped Advisory Committee, those being one at the Transit Center and the other at the Santa Fe Multimodal Transportation Hub. We're very excited to have these 2 locations as they fit well with the system that we already have in place and will make great intermediate stops for folks, particularly people riding public transit already, to have a Spokies station right there where they can hit up a Spokies bike to get to their final destination. In addition, ODOT has requested a station at Lake Hefner. Details are being worked out on that project, and we hope to have these stations up sometime early next year. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
How many bicycles do we have to add if we open up these additional locations?
We will, what we're going to put in is 12 dock stations, which typically require 8 bikes. We currently have 8 stations. We have 51 bikes. We're a little bit heavy on the bike inventory right now, so we probably won't order 8 full bikes for each of those stations. We'll probably cut that number down a little bit, as we seem to have more bikes in the system than we really need right now. And what that happens is that you get stations like the Cox Center or the ballpark that will completely fill up, which frustrates a cyclist who's looking for a place to dock their bike and there are no open docks. Same situation occurs at Elemental, where we only have 7 docks, and it's very easy to fill up that station. So to answer your question, 8 to 12 is the normal
Where's the
region.
proposed location at Lake Hefner?
Near the restaurants along the bike trail there. ODOT is going to be installing for us a pad and electrical, which cuts the cost of maintaining the station as well as installing the stations, because we don't have to put up a solar panel. There's also a lot of traffic through that area. They will be installing a bike ped count meter. It's some sort of device that counts how many people use the trail. So they're hopeful that we'll get a significant amount of traffic through there and therefore be able to generate enough revenue to maintain the station.
As part of the details that Jeannie mentioned we're working at, obviously, is involving the Utilities Trust and seeking their authorization to locate the kiosk or station, where it works for them as well.
Any other questions?
Jeannie, well, first, congratulations on all the increase in ridership and these sorts. I went for a bike ride around our river on the 4th of July, and the people who were out there, the population, I mean, it was incredible how many people were out there that day. Lots of young families, lots of young people, every ethnicity. It was beautiful. I'm wondering what sort of river cruise service we provide on the 4th. From what I've, in my discussions with people familiar with the people who showed up at the Wheeler District, they were running out of beer, they were running out of food, but it was just they were overwhelmed and excited by how big this event was, and it just went from Wheeler all the way down to Walker and Robinson, which I know because I accidentally rode my bike around the entire river. To get back down to Robinson. It was crazy. Wow. So what are our services on the 4th of July? Have we looked at that going forward? Because, I mean, there they were, all the people just staring at our beautiful river in our city. So.
Yes, we have done 4th of July cruises in the past, and we were approached by Prodigal, who did the fireworks exhibition at the Boathouse District on the 4th. What we're focusing on right now is controlling cost. Additional revenue is always great, but at one point, it's been a few years ago, we added so many of these additional services, so many of these additional cruises, that it generated more expense than we were able to absorb. We were using a lot of our capital overflow to cover. So we've trimmed things down quite a bit. As there is more activity on the river and there's more demand for us to provide transit, we will certainly consider for next year a 4th of July cruise. I know we could probably generate some significant revenue and sell out that cruise, particularly with all the activity and the fireworks. We're also talking with the Wheeler District. They would dearly love a Spokie station. They would love to have a river cruise landing there. and those are certainly things on our radar for future capital improvements.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I would have a motion to receive our program reports.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Any items from the trustees before we go into executive session? Then I'd have a roll call vote to enter into executive session.
Yes.
Yes? Yes. All right, thank you.